What's good, YouTube? We're back with another vid. Today we're reacting to JxmyHighroller's using numbers to find the 75 greatest NBA players of all time. I was thinking about doing an NBA top 50 players of right now, a vid. You know, those are always controversial. Those get good engagement, but I don't know if y'all would be interested in that. Plus, I've never did that type of video before, so if you guys want me to, please let me know. I'll draft up my own best vids of, or best players of right now, and I can do a best players of all time vid too, and just my list and why I believe so. And I'd have to deep dive into research and do numbers and you know, stats and research players' careers and plays and see how they play and stuff like that. But if y'all want that, I will put in that effort for y'all, so let me know in the comments. JxmyHighroller's apparently put in the work and found the 75 greatest NBA players of all time, so we're gonna listen to what he has to say first. Make sure I like, comment, subscribe. This should be a good video. JxmyHighroller always does good videos, so yeah, let's see what he says.
On the 50th anniversary of the NBA, the league put together a list of the 50 greatest players in NBA history. Dating all the way back to 1946, the list included the best players to ever play the game. From the most notable players like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Wilt Chamberlain, to some old school players that a lot of modern fans have never even heard of, such as Dolph Schayes, Dave Bing, and Hal Greer. Fast forward 25 years, and this season, for the first time since 1996, the NBA is releasing a new list. An updated list of the top 75 greatest players of all time. And sometime later this month, the official list will be released. But until then, many NBA fans have wondered how the league will go about this. Will the NBA keep the original 50 players and just add 25 new ones? In that case, it would be tough to narrow down 25 years of basketball to just 25 players. Not only that, but as much as we want to respect the past, I think we can all agree that a generational talent in the 50s isn't quite up to par with the generational talent from the 2000s. But this list is based off of the greatest players, not the best players. And there's a distinct difference there. A player can be exceptional, but due to many different variables like injuries and bad management, that player may never reach their full potential in terms of greatness. Tracy McGrady, Patrick Ewing, and Dominique Wilkins are all great examples of this. With a list this expansive, ranging through 7 decades worth of NBA history, there is bound to be a lot of subjectivity. The official top 75 greatest players of all time list was voted on by a blue ribbon panel of media, current and former players, coaches, general managers, and team executives. But even with all that basketball knowledge and experience, there are bound to be entries that leave you baffled. Writers for USA Today Sports created their own list of the greatest 75 players ever. One writer voted for Robert Horry to be a part of the ultra-elite top 75.
Robert Horry. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. There's definitely better players than Robert Horry. Definitely 75 better players.
Another writer had K.C. Jones above James Harden and Dwayne Wade. This writer doesn't even know how to spell Pau Gasol's name. And this writer put Kobe Bryant as the 15th greatest player of all time.
No.
15th. But if that isn't crazy enough, check out this writer's list. He's got Michael Jordan at 3, Magic Johnson at 15, below.
LeBron at not LeBron. Sorry, Jordan at 3 is crazy.
Karl Malone, Isaiah Thomas, and Elgin Baylor. He's got Pete Maravich, a player that only played 10 seasons in the league, 7 spots above Stephen Curry. He also has Kevin Garnett at 55,
Don't shame Pete,
right
though,
behind Ray Allen. This is far from a good list, but instead of sitting on the sidelines and judging, I made my own list. But this isn't just any old list I threw together based off of my own subjective point of view. The entirety of my top 75 greatest players of all time was constructed by using purely numbers and statistics. An extremely unconventional and probably psychotic way to go about this. But if you're familiar with this channel, you know this isn't anything new. Numbers don't lie, but they also don't tell the full story. So this will be tough. To begin this process, I selected 110 players that I felt were eligible to even be considered for this list. Players from every era, every decade, every position and playstyle. 110 players doesn't sound like a lot, but think of any all-time elite talent, and chances are they were included in this process. Next, I chose 13 different metrics to rank each player off of. Now, this was the trickiest part of this entire experiment. I needed to avoid metrics that heavily favorite longevity because there are current NBA players who haven't been in the league long enough to even crack those leaderboards. For example, I chose points per game instead of total career points. But at the same time, we also want to acknowledge and reward when a player maintains excellence for an extended number of years. Some of these metrics may seem a bit random, but after spending far too many hours deliberating this, I'm pretty confident that these metrics give the best representation of every aspect that makes a player great. And lastly, not every category is weighted the same. Finals MVPs, regular season MVPs, and championships are weighted slightly heavier than the other categories since, those things are pretty important. I will assess every player in every category. The top 20 players in each category will earn points. The leader in each category will earn the most points, second place earning the second most points, and so on down to the 20th best player. Once each player has been assessed across all 13 categories, we will add up the total points, and the top 75 points earners will be our top 75 list.
Okay.
So, with that out of the way, let's get into this. The first category we looked at was Championships 1, and the obvious leader here is Bill Russell. Bill's right-hand man John Havlicek racked up the second most points here, and 4 players each earned the third most points. The next category is Finals MVPs. Now, technically, Michael Jordan has the most Finals MVP in NBA history with 6. But the award didn't even exist when Bill Russell was in the league. In fact, Russell was so dominant in the finals, they literally named the award after him. And because of that, I gave Bill Russell the top spot. There's about, 100% chance that if the award existed when Bill was playing, he would have more than 6 anyways. So second is Michael Jordan and third is LeBron. Fun fact, only 5 players in NBA history have won more Finals MVPs than Willis Reed. Next is regular season MVPs, and leading the way is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, followed by Michael Jordan and Bill Russell.
Okay.
Only 8 players in league history have earned more than 2 regular season MVPs, one of them being the criminally underrated Moses Malone. Next, we have every fan's favorite stat, points per game. And with the top spot is Michael Jordan, just narrowly edging out Wilt Chamberlain, followed by Elgin Baylor. What's crazy here is that Wilt, Elgin, and Jerry all played on the same Lakers roster for 4 seasons. And in one of those seasons, neither Wilt, Jerry, or Elgin led the team in scoring. Shout out 1972 Gail Goodrich. Following points per game is assists per game. And at first thought, I assumed John Stockton held this title, but it's actually Magic Johnson with a sizable lead, followed by Stockton and Oscar Robertson. On the other end of the spectrum, we have rebounds per game, a category that is dominated by pre-modern big men, with Wilt Chamberlain averaging a mind-boggling 22.89 rebounds per game, followed closely by Bill Russell and Bob Pettit.
22.
Dwight Howard and Joel Embiid are the only active players to crack this leaderboard. Next, we're handing out points to players who dominated the defensive end with all defensive team selections. Tim Duncan is the clear leader here with a selection total that will more than likely never be topped. 15 selections to the NBA all defensive team.
That means almost his entire career he was on all defensive. Is Jordan on this list? No.
Think about that. Most players don't even play 15 seasons in the NBA. Second is Kobe Bryant and Kevin Garnett, each with 12 selections apiece. Next, we're looking at all NBA team selections. This category, among the last one we just looked at, rewards sustained excellence. So there are players who aren't on this leaderboard but will be in years to come. Players like Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Giannis, as well as a few others. But for now, we must assess these players based off of their body of work. And as it stands, the leaders here are LeBron, Kareem, and Kobe. Now, there is a current player that I could see passing LeBron's current record of all NBA selections. Any guesses to who that player might be? Leave your answers in the comments below. Next up is one of the better statistics for measuring a player's value on the court, or rather their impact on winning. And that's win shares per 48. And at the top is unsurprisingly Michael Jordan. But trailing him by just a sliver is David Robinson.
Sneaking up
that's
on
about
list.
as close as it gets. If Robinson played a couple games just slightly better throughout the entirety of his career, he would lead all NBA players in this category. And right after Robinson is Wilt Chamberlain. So remember when I said that this list was going to be made up entirely of numbers and statistics? Well, I lied. This category is one that I made up, but hear me out. This metric is necessary. There are 0 statistics that show how great a player is at making shots. And I'm not just talking about how good a player is at shooting, I'm talking about players who can create and make their own shots. Players that can put the ball in the basket on demand from just...
So this is what he came up with on his own.
About anywhere. There's some advanced stats that do a decent job at quantifying this aspect of the game, but since those metrics only date back to about a decade ago, I came up with this. Now take a good look at this leaderboard, because
Kobe Bryant 1, Curry 2, okay. Durant 3, okay. Tracy McGrady 4, I'm not mad. Harden 5, Harden over McGrady, ooh. 6 Lillard, okay. 7 Reggie Miller, okay. 8 Klay Thompson, no. Larry Bird over Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is more of a catch and shoot guy rather than a create his own shot guy. Same with Ray Allen. Ray Allen's not a create his own shot guy. He's a more catch and shoot guy. Kyrie Irving is over both Klay Thompson and Ray Allen. Carmelo is over both Klay Thompson and Ray Allen. Jordan's over both Klay Thompson and Ray Allen. Dwayne Wade is over both Klay Thompson and Ray Allen. I'll probably put Klay Thompson and Ray Allen right above Alice English. Honestly. Steve Nash is probably more of a... but you know what? I'm not even going to say that. They make their shots. But I thought he said it's also based off creating.
Because although it is subjective...
Where's Corver? No, I'm trolling.
I think it's pretty solid, with Kobe Bryant, in my opinion, being the greatest shot maker in NBA history, followed by Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Tracy McGrady, and James Harden. Our next category is the infamous PER stat. I know it's become a bit of a punching bag among NBA fans over the last few years, but it's still a solid all-around stat, and it's more data to be considered for this process. And topping the list is Michael Jordan, followed by LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Okay, so here is an interesting category. Peak, as in a player's peak years. In this case, their best 5-year stretch in regards to win shares. And here we can see that Wilt Chamberlain had the greatest peak in NBA history, putting up numbers that don't even register in today's NBA context. At the second spot is Kareem, who had an incredible individual run in Milwaukee that really isn't talked about enough. And in the third spot is Michael Jordan, who at his peak looked like Jesus in a basketball jersey. And last, we have the impact and influence category. This category was narrowed down to 10 players who have influenced the game the most. Players that change the way we see the game, how we watch basketball, how we play basketball, and how we fell in.
Bill Russell had impact and influence over the game? Like, was that measurable back then? Obviously, he had impact and influence, but was his impact and influence measurable in comparison to people like Allen Iverson, who, good lord, Allen Iverson had impact and influence for Shorsky. LeBron at 4 makes sense. Curry definitely had more of an impact and influence over the league, or over how people watch and play the game for Shorsky. Okay.
In love with the game in the first place. And leading here is Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Stephen Curry. And that covers it. All 110 players through each of our 13 categories. So, who came out on top? Which players cracked the top 20? And who rounds out the top 75 NBA players of all time? I mean, who are we kidding?
Michael Jordan has won it for Chicago. Oh, what a move by Jordan. Whose game is it? It's Michael Jordan.
This isn't my list.
With the top spot, just like every other chart we've ever covered, is Michael Jordan. with a
What about
total score of 167. Way ahead of everyone else. Michael ended up leading in 4 categories and was top 5 in 8 different categories. Michael's a rare case of a jack of all trades and a master of many. But we all knew he was going to be number 1 all time, so let's take a look at where some other players landed. Our top 10 is made up of Jordan,
Larry Bird,
LeBron,
11?
Kareem, Wilt, Russell, Kobe, Magic, Duncan, Durant, and Shaq.
We're taking Durant over Bird. All time, no. KD gotta show me more rings, bro. That's all, bro. That's all. He need to show me some more rings that he can get without having the greatest shooter of all time on his team. You know what I mean? Like when LeBron got his rings, it's because he was the best player on his team. Now, that wasn't why, but he was the best player on his team when he got his rings. Kevin Durant was not the best player on his team when he got his rings.
Now, is that a perfect top 10? Well, I don't think a perfect top 10 exists, but considering we literally use data and numbers to make this list,
Kobe
I'd
at
say that's a
6?
really accurate top 10. And I just want to say that I'm glad to see Kevin Durant in the top 10 all time. Some fans will agree with this, many won't, but all things considered, Durant has put together a career that ranks up with the greatest of all time. If I had to put KD on an all-time list based off of what I personally think of him and his accomplishments, this is about where I'd put him as well.
KD over Shaq is some of the wildest things I've ever seen in my life. Much less Larry Bird, but Shaq too? Come on now, bro. No, I don't agree with this.
Larry Bird surprisingly missed the top 10 cuts and landed at 11, followed by Oscar Robertson, Hakeem, Pettit, and David Robinson. Steph Curry ended up at 16, followed closely by Chris Paul at 17, and Karl Malone, Dirk Nowitzki,
I got Curry over KD all time.
and Willis Reed rounded out the top 20. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on each and every player, but let's talk about some notable rankings. Kawhi Leonard finished at 22 with James Harden just behind him at 24. Giannis ranks 30th all time, which would make him, at this moment, the 6th greatest power forward of all time. I think that's probably too low for him. I know he's still young, but he's already accomplished a lot more than some other players above him did in their entire career. Westbrook, Lillard, and Kyrie all finished in the late to mid 40s.
Okay.
Carmelo and McGrady finished at 55th and 57th respectively, and somehow Dwayne Wade slipped down to 47. But you want to hear something insane? 5 players on this year's Lakers roster made this list. 5. And Dwight Howard, who would have been the 6th player to make this list, just narrowly missed it. Some more interesting notes about this list: the 1984 and 1996 draft classes, both known as 2 of the best draft classes of all time, both have 4 players who made this list. But this particular stretch right here, from 1996 to 1998, produced 9 players that made this list, which is what I would consider to be the best stretch of NBA drafts in league history. Of the original 50 players from the NBA's official list in 1996, 36 of them made the cut this time around. And of the 75 players on this list, 18 of them
We got
are
Jokic
currently
over
in the
Derrick Rose.
NBA. At just 22 years old, Luka Doncic is the youngest player on this list, and Luka's possible appearance on the NBA's official list has been the topic of a lot of debate lately. Should a player that has only played
I don't know why I said we got Jokic over Derrick Rose like that was a conversation, bro. I'm sorry. I'm tripping.
3 seasons in the NBA make such a prestigious list? Well, it all depends on how you look at it. Is Luka Doncic a top 75 player of all time in regards to what he has accomplished in the league? No. Is he a top 75 player of all time in regards to skill and ability? Without a doubt. I would assume that when the
I thought you said you're making this list off of numbers, and now you're talking about skill and ability, so... But, High Roller, you're confusing
NBA
me
makes
now.
their list actors. But in the case of our list, the data says he lands at the 42nd spot. Which is crazy, because Luka doesn't even qualify for half of these categories yet, and he still rose this high on this list. But I want to make something clear. This list is far from perfect. Paul Pierce is too low, Dwayne Wade is too low, he should be somewhere around 30, Bob Pettit's too high, Clyde Drexler and Patrick Ewing didn't even make the cut, which is an absolute tragedy, and I think the biggest flaw in using this particular method of sorting out the top 75 players of all time is that numbers do a terrible job
Yeah, Chris Paul's way too high too.
Of recognizing the small nuances of a player's game.
Oh God.
There's no real
Settle
way
rings.
to explain Stephen Curry's on-court gravity using just numbers. A basic stat like points per game does not begin to describe.
But even Curry has numbers to back it up too. So it's not even just like, oh, Curry only has influence because of what he can shoot from half court. No, Curry has the numbers to back it up too.
Tracy McGrady's
The
scoring
ratings, all
prowess, and no stat truly captures just how dominant Patrick Ewing was in the low post.
Much
Numbers
as
can
he was
only
LeBron's
take us
rival.
so far. But you want to know the best part about this list? 95% of our entire process for deciding who lands where was based off of statistics, raw data, numbers on a computer screen. And we still came up with a better list than a lot of analysts and so-called experts.
Jalen, you must have made this list.
You can either use what they like to call the eye test to assess players, or you can use stats. I would like to think that most fans do a little bit of both. But to know that some individuals have an eye test that can lead them so far astray is baffling to me. Now, I know this list has its flaws, but instead of looking at who is and who isn't on it, look at where players landed on this list and who landed near them. Derrick Rose is right between Bob McAdoo and Nikola Jokic. And when you think about what these players have accomplished, this actually makes sense. Same thing with Willis Reed, Karl Malone, and Dirk Nowitzki. Charles Barkley and Kevin Garnett landed in back-to-back spots as well, which would make sense. But let's be honest, a list this extensive gets pretty shaky after about 40. Pretty much any ranking after that is completely up to interpretation. I don't care how much basketball you watch, the guy you pick at, let's say, the 50th spot is more than likely going to be a different player than who everyone else picks for their 50th spot. And that's probably the best part about this entire process.
In order for me to do a top 75 all-time list, y'all would be seeing a video every day. Y'all be seeing a reaction to Gary Payton, reaction to Paul Arizin. I don't even know who that is. Reaction to Dave DeBusschere, whoever that is. Reaction to, I know who Walt Frazier is. Reaction to Hal Greer. Reaction to Rick Barry. Bro, y'all will be getting reactions every week because my research of these players will be happening through YouTube.
We've all watched a lot of NBA action. We all have our own opinions, we can all appreciate different aspects of the game. No matter how you split it, no one's necessarily wrong. Well, unless you have someone other than Michael Jordan at number 1. Then you're definitely wrong. And you can go ahead and throw
Alright, buddy, this is the end of the
and as
video.
all predictions as to how you think the NBA's list will look. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, until next time.
I forgot, but I'm pretty sure they had Klay Thompson somewhere on this list. The NBA. Do I have Klay Thompson 75 all time? Or did they not? Did they snub him? I forget. But yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I would need to do like months and months and months of research before doing a video like this. So if you want me to do a top 10, that will be much easier and I can definitely do that. But other than that, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.